Now, Kant's pretty hot to trot about the fact that we are author of our laws here. And if we look what we're doing, we are not turning to nature, right? We're not turning to some sort of absolute truth in order to govern our actions. Act only according to that maxim, whereby we can at the same time will that it should be a universal law. What we are doing, in a sense, using our ordinary reason. Every time we evaluate a moral situation in terms of the categorical imperative, which is a rational principle that comes right from the structure of our rationality according to Kant, right, is we are, in a sense, dictating moral law to all rational creatures. When I act according to that maxim whereby I can at the same time will it to be universal law, what I'm doing is saying that any rational creature, insofar as they're rational, ought act as I'm acting. Right? So in a sense, what we are doing is, with each and every one of our decisions that are rational in this way, we are dictating to all sentient creation, all rational beings, law that holds absolutely to rational beings. Now, this brings us to the second formulation of the categorical imperative, which we find on page 35 of your text, which reads, "Now I say that man, and in general every rational being, exists as an end in himself, and not merely as a means to be arbitrarily used by this or that will." I'll read that again, just for emphasis. "Now I say that man, and in general every rational being, exists as an end in himself, and not merely as a means to be arbitrarily used by this or that will." All right? Now, what Kant is claiming here is that between rational beings, there is no morally relevant difference between any one of us and any other one of us. Whether you're Mother Teresa or Barack Obama or the Dalai Lama or you or me or that guy that stands at the tunnel entrance saying, "Please help, hungry, can't find food. God bless." Right? There is absolutely no morally relevant difference and no moral distinction between any one of us and any other one of us. In a sense, insofar as we're rational, we are all kings. Insofar as we can self-determine. Right? This paints us out unlike things. Pens, coffee cups, my cats, as important creatures, ones that can self-govern, right? Ones that can determine morality and act according to those maxims whereby they can at the same time will them to be universal law. We can tell the difference between right and wrong. Right? So at the same time as we should know better than violating our duties, right? We are worthy of respect because we can act according to duties and in fact know how to act according to duties. So, one more quick example with regard to that. When my cat takes one of its claws and scratches the heck out of my arm, as happens when he gets startled, I don't really hold him responsible for that. I don't really hold him responsible for making me bleed. Whereas if one of you were to get startled and scratch the hell out of one of my arms, right, there would be a whole world of moral difference. Now, likewise with children. Right? Children get a little bit of leeway because perhaps they should know better, but they're not of full rational capacity as of yet. And that's why our laws try children under different laws. Right? Likewise, if somebody is declared mentally incapable of determining their own actions, what we're saying is that these people couldn't have known any better. Right? They can't act according to that maxim whereby they can at the same time will it to be a universal law. They cannot figure out what their duty is. Right? So in a sense, we can't say they should know any better. So in a sense, what we have to do is govern their actions for them. Right? Leash laws with dogs, right? Training with cats, education and rules with children, right? Until children become rationally capable of determining themselves for themselves. But this also, according to Kant, suggests a limit whereby, in which, or beyond which, we can not use other people. Right? If we are merely using another human being to attain our ends, we're not giving them the respect that they deserve. Right? So, for example, in a sense, you're using me to get a credit from Oakland University, and in a sense, I'm using you to get a paycheck for doing what it is I like to do in terms of teaching and reasoning about philosophy. Right? So there's a sense in which we're engaging with this material. But now, let's say I were to lie to you about this material. There we have a moral situation. Let's say that lie to you about this material were to achieve some sort of political end on my part. There we would have another problem. Now, at the same time, let's say one of you were to plagiarize your exam responses. These are moral situations, and in a moral situation, right, what I would be doing if I lied to you, or what you would be doing if you plagiarized to me, is using me, or I would be using you, as merely a means to my end. Right? And this is a violation of this second formulation of the categorical imperative, according to Kant. Now, this second formulation of the categorical imperative, we should note, works out exactly the same way with regard to the cases that the examples that we discussed. Should you commit suicide? No, you'd just be using your life as a means to the end of enjoyment. Right? So you're using yourself as a means to your end. Should you lie to another person to get what you want? No, you would be, in a sense, using that person to get what you want. Right? Now, the second set of examples, 3 and 4 there, should you develop your talents? Well, perhaps not developing your talents is not a strict violation of the rational principle, right? But it does not, as Kant points out, harmonize with the end of treating yourself as an end in yourself, right? You're treating yourself sort of in a weak sense as a means to the end of a life of enjoyment, right? Again, should you help other people? Well, if you didn't, it wouldn't be in violation. You wouldn't be treating people as a means only to your end, but you would not be giving people the full respect that they deserve as rational beings, right, that can self-determine, right? So in each of these 4 cases, what Kant wants to point out is that the end in itself formulation, now so that man and in general every rational being exists as an end in himself, and not merely as a means to be arbitrarily used by this or that will. Well, what Kant is pointing out is that judgments that come from the first formulation line up almost completely with judgments that come from the second. And what's more, it's because of the first formulation that we're able to say that people are ends in themselves, right? So they're self-same, right? Now, the final formulation that we're going to turn to, and I have to add another section to this, so it's going to be one additional section to this lecture, right? But the final formulation Kant calls the kingdom of ends, right? It relies on both the first and the second. Because we are self-determining creatures by the first formulation, and because we're ends in ourselves by the second, thirdly, we should strive to create a society and live as though the world is populated by these self-regulating individuals. And we'll see how that works in a second, and we'll see how all 3 work with one